A glimpse on life. About 3 weeks ago, I was mountain biking this path with two of my friends, and I told them to go ahead because they like to go downhill fast. Me, on the other hand, I like to take my time, cautiously go down, and avoid any potential injury. Unfortunately, I hit a patch of dirt and it threw me off my bike, and I landed on my left side. I bruised my whole arm, my hip. Of course, I went to the ER, got checked out. CT scan, x-ray were all negative, thank God. And when I went home and explained the story to my wife, you can imagine her response. Perhaps it'll be the same response one of you have for me. She said, "Bernard, maybe it's time to stop cycling." And that made me reflect on my life. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to focus on how your decisions can be driven by my experiences and a glimpse of my life. Many of you probably seen this graph before on the internet. It assumes that if you live 90 years and each row represents 3 years of your life, with your birth and on the lower right hand, 90 years old. And in between, there's 30 years, there's 60 years. And so I took this graph and mapped out my life so far. It's about half of it is done, assuming that I lived up to 90 years old. It could have ended in that first dot 3 weeks ago with that mountain bike accident, but thank God it didn't. And I think about minimizing risks after that accident, right? I can start thinking about the don'ts, and I can obviously don't ride bikes. And I also can think about not snowboarding because I do like to snowboard, but maybe I won't snowboard anymore. And you saw a video a few years back where someone snowboarding in between the trees and they found someone buried, and that person could have passed away. Surfing, when I started surfing, I was near the reef, and a lot of times I fell into the reef and cut myself, and that could have hurt me. And maybe that's also a reason that I may not want to surf. And traveling, I think all of you can relate to traveling. You can travel to Mexico and feel like, well, the cartels, you've read about them. There's crossfire shootings, and they happen at tourist sites, and people have been unfortunately killed. So you may not want to travel to Mexico. Thailand, about a decade ago, you can see on YouTube videos, it's very scary. There's a tsunami coming, the water recedes back a lot, and all of a sudden it just rushes and just covers and just decimates all the resorts near the beaches. Italy, there's pickpocketing. You may not want to go to Italy because you don't want your passports to be stolen or money taken away from you. And in France, if you've seen that movie Taken, and I have daughters myself, in that movie, the father is like a CIA ex-operative, and the daughter gets kidnapped, and he's able to retrieve her confidently. Now, if that happened to my daughter, I don't think I can retrieve her or even know where to begin. And all this, I want to focus on what it means. It centers around our fears. I could talk and go on about the pros and cons of fears, but I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on one acronym that you probably have heard of before, and that's FOMO, the fear of missing out. And you see this group of penguins that represents other people, and oftentimes we find ourselves as that lonely penguin on the right side. But I'm pointing at that penguin not because it's lonely or left out. I'm actually pointing at you yourself to think about the decisions that drive you to take on that next hobby, to experience life. And I don't want you, sure, we can take the influences of some group of what everyone else is doing, but it's really ultimately your decision. And I want to frame that again in this graph where this is half my life past, if I, again, assuming I live up to 90 years old. And then I think about, do I have any regrets, missed opportunities, or I should have done this or that? At first I was thinking, I have no regrets, because I don't want to live life with regrets. But then when I really thought thoroughly, I do have regrets, especially during the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, my wife actually was diagnosed with breast cancer. And during that whole ordeal, supporting her and worrying whether or not she'll pass away, I had regrets, thinking that I should have traveled more. I should have spent more time with the kids and creating memories with her. What if she passes away? So those are the thoughts that go through my mind. Luckily, and thank God, she was able to be overcome that challenge and be in remission at the moment. So that made me think about the rest of my life, that there's still time. There's still time for us. And so if I revisit the list that I just spoke to you about, I want to ask you, what is it that you want to do? And I encourage all of you to try, and experience. Riding bike is something that I won't give up because I love the scenery. I love climbing up that mountain. I road cycle and I also mountain bike. But I love climbing up the road, that long hill or mountain, and I overcome it. It's very gratifying at the top. And then you get rewarded by just riding down fast. Snowboarding, same thing. Bluebird days. I live near Lake Tahoe where you can oversee the lake, and on a great powder day, it's just wonderful feeling, especially with your family. Now, I don't surf, but those who do surf tell me that it's great to catch a big wave. And for traveling, I've been to Mexico. I drove there. I rented a car there. They have warm beaches. And they have this best place, a snorkeling water park. I live in the U.S., but there's no place in the U.S. that I visited that have that snorkeling water park. Let alone the food is actually solid, whereas the amusement park food here in the U.S. isn't that great. I've never been to Thailand, but some people talked about how inexpensive the food is, the culture, the beaches. In Italy, there's gelato ice cream, there's pizza. There's this place called Cinque Terre, which is great in the summertime. You can visit 5 places with different experiences. And then there's shopping, and their train system is wonderful. France, there's coffee shops, there's food, the Palace of Versailles, very beautiful, Hall of Mirrors there, subway system. So if I was to have another lens provided to you to think about this, it's the spectrum of fear. On the left side, you have no fear, fearless, and on the right side, you can have full of fear. And I don't advocate anyone to be on either side of the spectrum, because you kind of lose out on life and you have those regrets again. As of anything, you want to balance the spectrum of anything. So I highlight this in the middle: balance your fears. You should, when you go to Italy, be cautious not to be pickpocketed and prepare ahead of time. You should go to when you go like a cold beach, whatever, you're going to surf, maybe put on a swimsuit or a heavier cover to keep yourself warm. But I want to summarize that ultimately in this quote: it's your life. You want to live it your way. And so I want to encourage you again to practice that balance of being in between being too fearful and fearless, and make your decisions so that you don't have those regrets. And if I was to follow up on my mountain biking accident, I'm going to continue mountain biking. It's something that up to recently, I've been road cycling for many years, and I love both sports. And they had to do with bikes, but different types of bikes and different types of dangers, right? For instance, road cycling, you're on the road and there's cars around. Whereas mountain biking, you're at these trails, but the trails have rocks and ravines, but I don't really want to ride those. But yet, in my case, I need to, prepare. And the things I can control is buy armor, cushions around my hips, so that next time if I'm thrown off, a full helmet, I'm thrown off, I won't be injured and I won't be killed. And so those are the choices that drive me to continue on the hobby in a cautiously fearful way, somewhere in that middle of the balance. And I encourage all of you to apply the same thought process when you decide to travel or when you decide to try a new hobby. Don't let that stunt you. Don't have regrets. There's also some folks who live the rest of their lives trying to save as much money as possible, thinking that at the end of their life, they're going to invest all that time to travel. But the problem about that is, you're at a certain age where as you grow older, you're going to have perhaps more problems with mobility issues or illnesses, things that you cannot foresee. And so I encourage, again, if you look at that visual of 1 to 90 years, you want to spend somewhere in the center of those years traveling, and where you are able to travel and you're young, whereas later on it might be harder to have the strength to do so. And so that's what I want you all to take away with, is to make your decisions and live the way you want to live. Thank you.